Welcome to Sip and Talk, everybody. I am your host and your good friend. I'm Joe. So glad to be hanging out today.
And good morning, good afternoon, or good night to all our Sip and Talkers out there. Whatever time zone you are in right now, we're so happy you tuned in.
We really are.
I'm Sunny.
But I have to lower my voice a bit for this one because today's episode is a little bit special.
Ooh, mysterious. I like it.
Right. Well, it's not some random internet drama or celebrity gossip. Today, we're looking at a real-life social observation.
Yeah, and this was actually submitted by a really good friend of ours, Mickey.
Shout out to Mickey. And, Mickey is almost finished with his media studies, so he has this highly calibrated eye for how people construct their public narratives.
Which makes his observations incredibly sharp. So Mickey watched this dynamic unfold with a close friend of his.
A friend who grew up in a really severe domestic violence environment, right?
Yes, exactly. And on the surface, her public persona is just a flawless, high-definition masterpiece, perfect outfits, extreme friendliness.
Just a totally magnetic charm. Like, she immediately wins over every stranger in the room.
But the moment the doors close and the audience is gone, it is a completely different operating system. She becomes incredibly harsh.
Yeah, Mickey said she systematically demeans the people who genuinely care about her the most. It's wild.
It really is. And today, we are not just sharing a crazy story. We are going to use some hardcore psychology to decode this.
Because we want to know why some people treat genuine kindness as like a weakness that just begs to be trampled on.
Exactly.
So I am officially dropping the title for today's Sip and Talk. Are you ready?
Let's hear it.
Don't let your kindness become a sacrifice for another's trauma.
Wow. That is heavy, but so important.
Totally. So to understand that destructive interior that Mickey witnessed, I feel like we first have to deconstruct the exterior.
Yeah, we have to ask why she put so much energy into crafting this flawless, sparkling public persona.
It's like she's walking around starring in her own toothpaste commercial, just treating total strangers like absolute royalty.
To understand the function of that exterior, we really have to look at Pete Walker's framework for complex PTSD.
Okay, lay it on me.
So specifically, we need to talk about the fawn response. Most of us are familiar with the classic survival instincts, right?
Like fight, flight, and freeze.
Exactly, but fawning is the fourth defense mechanism.
Wait, fawning? Like overly flattering someone?
Yeah, exactly. When a child is trapped in a violent or volatile home, fighting back or running away just aren't viable options.
Right, because they're a kid. They have no power.
Exactly. So they learn to preemptively pacify the threat. They abandon their own boundaries and become hyper-compliant.
Oh, wow. So that extreme friendliness that Mickey observed, it isn't actually genuine altruism.
Not at all. It's not about being a naturally nice person. It's a localized survival tactic that just never got switched off.
Man, that is intense. So it's basically a defense mechanism stuck in the on position.
That is the core mechanism. Psychology refers to this as social compensation. She's essentially building this massive defensive moat.
Like a fortress.
Yeah. If she is perfectly agreeable and completely unthreatening, she minimizes the statistical probability of being attacked.
Okay, that makes sense. And I'm guessing the meticulous aesthetic, the perfect outfits, that serves the exact same function.
100%. There is some robust research regarding this concept called compensatory self-esteem.
Compensatory self-esteem. Okay, break that down for us.
It explores how people use aesthetic perfection and extreme curation as a literal suit of armor. Underneath it all, there is a crippling imposter syndrome.
And just a deep terror of being exposed, right?
Yes, terrified of being seen as worthless. So the flawless exterior is designed to deflect any deep scrutiny.
I love a good tech scene analogy, and this whole situation just screams beta-tested app in Silicon Valley.
Oh, I like where this is going. How so?
Well, you see these startups launch an app with this wildly beautiful user interface. It looks completely bug-free on the surface.
Right, super sleek and polished.
Exactly. But the reality is the developer is terrified. They know the underlying code is an absolute mess.
Just held together by duct tape and hope.
Yes, and they're constantly sweating that one small error will cause a total system crash. Or worse, that society is just going to hit uninstall.
Oh, that fear of being uninstalled by society is a fantastic way to frame it.
Right. The UI is perfect strictly out of fear.
The user interface has to be completely unthreatening because she fundamentally believes her true self is entirely unacceptable.
But see, this brings up a massive logical contradiction for me.
What's that?
If she is so terrified of being rejected, if she's meticulously coding this perfect app to ensure everyone likes her,
yeah,
why on earth would she unleash her absolute worst system-crashing bugs on her most loyal users?
That is the million-dollar question.
Like, why demean the people who actually care about her? That is just terrible programming.
It seems completely irrational until you examine the subconscious mapping of her trauma.
Okay, so it's not a logical choice.
Not at all. Her brain isn't operating on logic. It's operating on Freud's concept of repetition compulsion.
Repetition compulsion, meaning she feels compelled to repeat the past.
Exactly. This is a fundamental drive where the unconscious mind attempts to process and master an old, unhealed trauma by repeatedly restaging it in the present.
Restaging the trauma. So because she was trampled on and made to feel powerless as a child, she's practically rebuilding that exact dynamic today.
You've hit the nail on the head.
But wait, only this time, she's recasting the roles. She transitions from the powerless victim to the dictator holding the whip.
Yes, just to see what it feels like to finally have the control. She is trying to rewrite history by playing the role of the aggressor.
That is so dark, but it completely tracks.
And we can layer this with insights on vulnerable narcissism. We traditionally picture narcissists as grandiose, chest-beating, look-at-me types, right?
Yeah, the ones who genuinely believe they're just superior to everyone else in the room.
Right. But vulnerable narcissists, on the other hand, are highly insecure. They are hypersensitive to rejection.
So they are constantly on edge.
Exactly. The data clearly shows that when vulnerable narcissists feel threatened, or simply have their fragile self-esteem bruised, they exhibit significantly higher levels of aggression and demeaning behavior than the grandiose types.
Wow. Because the grandiose narcissist already assumes they are untouchable.
Right, they don't care.
But the vulnerable one is desperately treading water, just terrified of sinking back into that feeling of being small and powerless.
And that desperation fuels a defense mechanism called projective identification.
Projective identification. Okay, walk us through the mechanics of that.
This is where it gets truly fascinating and a bit dark. She secretly hates that past victimized version of herself.
She views her past weakness with absolute disgust.
Exactly. So when her friends show her kindness, empathy, or vulnerability, she doesn't see a gift. She sees a mirror.
Oh, wow. So she projects her own internalized self-disgust onto their kindness and she attacks it.
That's it.
Let me make sure I'm grasping the mechanics of that.
Okay.
She isn't consciously sitting there thinking, I am projecting my self-loathing onto Mickey.
No, definitely not conscious.
Right. So in her mind, she genuinely perceives Mickey's kindness as an offensive, pathetic trait.
Yes.
And she attacks it because she was severely punished for showing that exact same softness when she was a kid.
That is the exact internal logic. She is neutralizing the vulnerability in you before it can infect her.
Which creates this incredibly twisted security paradox.
Explain what you mean by that.
Well, she is attacking her allies exactly because they are safe. She knows a caring friend won't punch her in the face or scream at her like her childhood abusers did.
Oh, absolutely. It's a failed stress test.
Yeah. She saves her absolute best public relations team for total strangers on the street. But she pumps all her toxic waste straight into the backyards of her closest allies.
That is a brutally accurate way to put it.
But mathematically speaking, doesn't this strategy guarantee she ends up completely alone?
Oh, it absolutely guarantees isolation. And exploring how that isolation happens brings us to a phenomenon we can call adverse selection in social circles.
Adverse selection. That sounds like a mix of game theory and social psychology.
It is. Let's look at the mechanics of a healthy social ecosystem. If you demean someone, a healthy person with strong, established boundaries will experience that disrespect and immediately walk away.
Because they recognize the negative value proposition
Right.
and just exit the relationship.
Right. So who remains in the ecosystem?
Only the people who don't walk away. Mickey actually had a term for this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he noticed that the only people left around her were what he called wood.
Wood. That is a very apt metaphor.
Right, people who just stand there and take it.
Exactly. These are individuals who either have severely blurred boundaries, a savior complex, or just very low self-esteem. They are willing to absorb the toxic waste.
So by continuously pushing away the healthy individuals who might actually hold her accountable, she is actively selecting for an echo chamber of compliance.
Yes, which creates complete social suffocation. She is surrounded by people, but utterly alone because no one is providing authentic, healthy friction.
She is filtering out anyone who could actually help her debug her code, leaving only people who validate her broken operating system by enduring it.
Beautifully said.
But here is the wrinkle Mickey pointed out to us. She complains about this isolation constantly.
Oh, of course she does.
Yeah, she would tell Mickey, everyone eventually blocks me. or people are always spreading malicious rumors about me.
That narrative relies on defensive attribution bias, utilizing a specific mechanism called external attribution.
In other words, outfitting her mind with a shock absorber so nothing is ever her fault.
Exactly. If she were to honestly face the reality that her own behavior is the common denominator in a trail of ruined friendships, her fragile psychological exterior would just shatter.
The imposter syndrome would win.
Right. To prevent that collapse, she manipulates a concept from economics called information asymmetry.
Information asymmetry. Like when a used car salesman knows the car is a total lemon, but the buyer only sees a fresh coat of paint.
Perfect analogy.
Because the seller is hoarding the context.
Exactly. She acts as the aggressive seller of her own victim narrative. She gets to new acquaintances first, paints herself as the tragic, misunderstood victim, and frames everyone who previously walked away as a cruel betrayer.
Man, so she hoards the context of her own abusive behavior.
Yes, and she controls the narrative from day one.
And it works. Mickey is a highly empathetic guy. He told us that when she was complaining about everyone blocking her, he initially wondered if those people were the villains.
Because if you only hear the lemon seller's pitch, you buy the car.
Exactly. But for anyone listening to this episode of Sip and Talk right now, how do we definitively separate a genuine victim narrative from a systematic psychological failure?
It's tricky, but you have to look closely.
Because if someone's social resume is filled with nothing but betrayals, how do we know if they're just incredibly unlucky or if they are the architect of their own misery?
You have to look past the narrative and examine the behavioral footprint. If someone is continuously standing in the ashes of burned bridges, at some point you must ask, who is carrying the matches?
That is a great visual.
Right. The statistical probability that an entirely random sequence of good people suddenly turned malicious and abandoned her is near zero.
Yeah, that math does not add up.
But the probability that her own unregulated trauma triggered a mass exodus of healthy people, that is incredibly high.
If you smell smoke everywhere you go, check your own shoes.
Oh, yes!
So let's pivot from diagnosing the broken code to actionable, real-world self-defense.
I love this part.
If our Sip and Talkers recognize this exact pattern in a coworker, a family member, or friend, how do they handle it? What is the defense protocol against someone who weaponizes your kindness?
The foundational step is accepting that her trauma forces her to view relationships as a strict zero-sum game.
A zero-sum game. So for her to win, you have to lose.
Precisely. In a healthy relationship, power and affection are abundant. Both people can win. In her operating system, power is finite.
Meaning if she is not actively dominating you, she assumes you are about to dominate her.
Exactly. Which means your kindness literally equals weakness in her eyes. It's an invitation to be conquered.
So the standard empathetic response, trying to be nicer, over-explaining your good intentions, offering more affection, all of that will absolutely backfire.
It simply signals that you are easy prey.
Man. So what do we do instead?
Instead, we can look to game theory, specifically the tit-for-tat strategy. And in this emotional context, we can rebrand it as armed gentleness.
Armed gentleness. I really like the weight of that phrase. It sounds like putting up a massive invisible firewall.
That's exactly what it is.
How do you deploy armed gentleness in a real conversation?
It requires maintaining a stance of strict professional detachment. You remain polite, you remain civil, but you strip the emotion entirely out of your responses.
Okay, so no reacting.
None. The absolute millisecond she demeans you, throws a passive-aggressive jab, or crosses a boundary, you withdraw your affinity. You do not argue, you do not try to convince her she is wrong, and you do not get angry.
Because anger just proves she successfully hacked your system?
Yes. You are just giving her the control she wants.
So you throw a system error straight into her loop. It's like using radical candor, but entirely deadpan.
Yes, very deadpan.
She throws a subtle, cutting insult at you, expecting you to either shrink away in tears or blow up in a rage. But instead, armed gentleness means you just look at her calmly and state, "Are you trying to demean me right now?"
That is the exact execution. A flat observational inquiry.
"Are you trying to demean me?"
Well,
it completely shorts out her circuit.
Because she operates in the shadows. She relies on the plausible deniability of passive aggression.
Right, dragging her behavior into the bright clinical light of a direct question forces her to either immediately back down or openly expose her hostility without the cover of a joke.
Exactly. It takes away all her power.
But I have to push back here on the reality of living like this.
Okay, fair enough.
Establishing this high-voltage firewall, constantly monitoring for disrespect, constantly throwing system errors, that sounds incredibly draining.
Oh, it is. It takes a massive amount of emotional bandwidth.
Right. So at what point do you just stop debugging someone else's code?
That is the pivotal question. And recognizing when you have reached that point is the ultimate test of your own boundaries, which is exactly the conclusion Mickey arrived at.
Yeah, Mickey eventually made the decision to stop playing the game entirely. He walked away and blocked her permanently.
He did.
And honestly, hearing the mechanics of it all, good for him.
It is the ultimate act of self-preservation. And it is crucial that we frame this correctly for anyone who might be in Mickey's shoes right now.
How so?
Walking away from someone who is actively draining your psychological resources is not an act of cruelty. It is the implementation of a high self-esteem, zero-tolerance policy.
Let's expand on that guilt factor, because I think a lot of people feel immense guilt when they block someone who has a documented traumatic past.
Oh, absolutely.
You feel like you're abandoning someone who is already injured, you know?
And that guilt stems from empathy, which is a vital, beautiful human trait. But high-value individuals understand that their emotional bandwidth and energy are finite resources.
They view this dynamic for what it is, a negative-sum game.
Exactly. You can acknowledge her trauma, you can feel deep sorrow for the child who was raised in violence, but you fundamentally refuse to be a blood bag for her vulnerable narcissism today.
Refusing to be a blood bag. Man, that is a visceral way to put it.
It's the truth.
You can have all the empathy in the world for the tragic origin story of the vampire, but you still don't offer them your neck.
Wow, yes. Empathy without boundaries is just self-destruction.
Yeah.
There is a psychological axiom: you teach people how to treat you.
Right.
By permanently removing her from his ecosystem, Mickey taught her the only lesson that matters. His kindness is a high-value asset reserved for those who respect it.
It is not a sacrificial lamb for those who don't.
Exactly.
You know, it goes back to the oldest rule of water rescue. You cannot save someone who is drowning if they are actively trying to pull you under. You just can't.
It's physically impossible.
If their panic is causing them to push your head underwater so they can breathe, you have to break their grip and swim away.
Because attempting to stay just creates 2 drowning victims instead of 1. It doesn't make you a savior, it makes you a casualty.
This has been a heavy, deeply analytical discussion, and I want to leave everyone with a final provocative thought.
Go for it.
When you finally walk away from relationships like this, it is so easy to look back at the wreckage and feel like it was all just a massive waste of time and emotional energy.
Totally natural to feel that way.
But sometimes, even the most toxic people serve a critical purpose in your life. They help you map out your own architecture.
Oh, I like that.
You don't truly know where your walls need to be built until someone actively tries to burn them down. They force you to define your boundaries with a clarity you never could have achieved in a safe vacuum.
That is a very powerful reframing. The friction they provide, however painful, crystallizes your own sense of self-worth.
Exactly.
And as we wrap up, we really want to reiterate that our goal with this analysis is to provide an objective breakdown of behavioral mechanics to encourage independent, critical thinking.
All right, we aren't targeting any specific groups or individuals, but rather exploring the universal psychological forces that can operate within any of us.
Absolutely. Critical thought and decoding the world around us is what Sip and Talk is all about.
So if you enjoyed today's discussion, make sure you hit that subscribe button on the Sip and Talk podcast so you never miss an episode.
And a massive shout out to our good friend Mickey for providing the catalyst for today's analysis. Make sure you all go check out his YouTube channel, Mickey to Life.
Yes, Mickey to Life. He's got some amazing new travel vlogs up that you definitely won't want to miss. His media studies are really paying off in his content right now.
Thank you, Mickey, and thank you to everyone listening today.
To all of you out there, keep your firewalls active, protect your energy, and remember that a flawless, high-definition exterior doesn't mean the code isn't broken on the inside. See you next time.